Back to Gold Shields. It's Dan Murphy here with my partner in crime, Tom Smith, on a little bit of a different episode, right, Tom?
Oh yeah, it's believe it or not, and shockingly, this was our last show of season 1. And you know what, Dan, when we came up with this idea, I think we had the first 7 guests lined up, and then after that we're like, "All right, well, what are we going to do?" And 51 shows later, we're we're signing off on our season 1 episode.
And we're booked out for months. We're booked out for months with amazing guests. You know, Tom, it has been an unbelievable pleasure to do this with you, and I'm looking forward to the future on this show. I had no idea that the chemistry between you and me would work the way it does in a format like this. I had no idea that this would even work. But it was a great idea, and it has evolved into something I cherish, which is we have a purpose and a mission in addition to giving great stories and great content. And that has meant a lot to me, and I look forward to every chance we get to talk about the show and plan for it and all that stuff, and, the feedback we get from people, this has been an unbelievable year. I mean, if you told me last year at this time when we first talked about it, we'd be here right now, I would have said, "No way. There's just no way." But look where we are. We have met some of the guests we've had this year, I was just scrolling through them today. Unbelievable people with stories that I've been blown away. I
It's been yeah, I mean, we get tongue-tied a lot. We've done other people's shows, thankfully, and so humble to be asked, to be on other podcasts and other shows. And we've gotten a how many times have we gotten asked, "What's a memorable show?" We can't answer that. We can't, because there's endless because we'll name 4 or 5 and then forget, "Oh, crap. What about that?" We've been beyond blessed with our guests, and make no mistake about it, everyone who's watching this kind of sign off for season 1, this show is our guests. They run it, they propel it, they're the content, they're everything we wanted in a show is our guests. Me and you kind of just keep the guardrails there and
we become fans. We're just fans listening to amazing people, and we have been blessed with meeting some incredible people, and that continues. And we're trying to keep up with booking these people that we're running into or being introduced to by people who we're meeting through the show and through our career, and it's been our goal is to give you, the audience, the best content, the best life stories, individual experience stories, the best advice and guidance in certain areas when it comes to things like wellness. Our goal is to help the profession any way we can. And as a result, that helps communities. We have a loftier goal than when we started out with, but that's good. I think it's evolved, and I feel good about it. It's kind of altruistic, right? We want to do good with this show. Use our platform for positive things. Showcase exceptional people. Let people get a glimpse into what it's like to live this life, would it be the military at a high level or policing at a high level and investigations and stuff, and what the community and what the public doesn't necessarily see or know about the men and women who dedicate their lives towards protecting them. So it's been just what an honor. What an honor it's been.
it's been an honor. I mean, we're blown away by people we've interviewed. That there's been times that me and you become speechless. Again, not pinpointing any particular show, but you look back on some of the shows with like Anthony Espada with the Cleveland thing, and me and you not knowing what to say. Uh, Tanya and Kimber, and just an endless amount of times that me and you get stuck in what do you say to these heroic people who have done so much out there, and we're blessed, and you know what? We'll give a little taste to everyone out there. We have lined up we're picking up where we left off with our guests. I mean, what we have coming up in season 2 is gonna be, we're gonna try to raise it a little. That's gonna be hard, but that's why not? I mean, let's give it a shot. And the people we have are incredible. I can't wait. to get that rolling, which will be the beginning of January. We're going to take a couple of weeks off for the holidays and to kind of restart our battery a little. But we have so many great ideas that we have for next season. The guests are already lined up.
Cold cases we're going to jump into with family members of people. We're going to be looking at things around the world, not just limited to the United States. We have all sorts of things up our sleeve that we're not going to tell you much about. I look back to the very first show that we had a guest on. We did an intro show, but then we had Louis Animone. We had an icon in the NYPD who also happens to be an exceptional human being and whose heart is still in helping the men and women of law enforcement. And he did a great job sharing some of his wisdom from his incredible career and very down to earth. You and I never thought, unless we were in a lot of trouble, we were ever going to talk to Louis Animone personally, right? I mean, he was the top dog and we were just, lower level functionaries, so to speak. But he didn't make us feel that way. He appreciates everybody that does this profession and respects them all. And that came through. And it was just a remarkable kickoff. We looked at each other when we were done speaking with him like, I can't believe that we just had that conversation with that man. I mean, and we want to thank him if he's listening to this. Thank you.
To start everything off.
And he challenged us, didn't he? He challenged us with a cold case that we still have on our website, right? And we're going to continue to do that. We want to raise awareness to things. If people have an understanding about something, we want to raise awareness. We want to help bring closure to cold cases when they're brought to our attention. So we have so many purposes.
Yep, and he just emailed me actually the other day, and I told you about it just to tell everyone. We did the JFK show, and he actually emailed us about how proud he was of us. And for everyone out there, when you're two NYPD detectives and someone like Louis Animone says he's proud of you, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Uh, and before we go out the door for season one, we both feel this way, but I'll say it and you can follow up with it. We do not have a show without Ovette, who's our production manager, and Taylor, our graphic designer. This show does not exist without the two of them. And I can't say that enough. We don't.
They're unbelievable, and the commitment and the hours and the time and the skill and the talent that they bring to this show, whether it be in terms of graphics or the way we lay things out and the content, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It just seems like the two of us sitting in a mic talking, and it is. But there's a lot that goes in before and after to make it come out as a finished product that we hope makes sense for the audience. And um, they are invaluable and they are, eh, so trusted by us because whenever they come up with an idea, we never have a problem with it. I mean, they seem to know what they're. I mean, we just stand back and go, "Wow, I'm blown away by that." Of course, we're doing it. So thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Ovette. You guys are the bomb.
My partner, which this ride doesn't happen without you either. Thank you for a unbelievable year that I can't say enough about. It's a great ride, and we're going to continue it. And everyone out there, stay tuned for some updates in some into look into season two with some of the ideas we have. We're going to release a little tease of guests that we have coming up. The website's going to get changed a little bit with some new stuff on there over the holidays and ready for January. So, Dan, thank you for a great year, a memorable year, and can't wait for 2024 and season two of Gold Shields.
Likewise, brother. Thank you. And for Gold Shields, for Tom and I, we just want to say we wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, if that's what you celebrate, a Happy New Year, a restful time, hopefully with family and friends, and we'll get right back on the horse at the beginning of the year. We look forward to that.
And thank you to everybody. Thank you very much. We will see you all soon.
Back to Gold Shields, the best true crime plus. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, along with my co-host and partner in crime, Tom Smith. How you doing today, buddy? Good.
Good,
We got a
pal.
great
How are
show
you?
today, but we got a couple of announcements we want to get out there. They're pretty important among our community and our friends. Tom, what do you got for us, buddy?
Yeah, our got to put our sponsor out there, Bone Frog Coffee Company. Tim Cruikshank and his team are incredible, supporting U.S. Navy SEAL community and their families. They have their holiday buzz, their Sons of Valor K cups, their Stay Frosty tactical blends, their Holiday Frogman dark roast, holiday gift boxes, which that box is incredible with what they provide in a gift box. It would be an incredible gift for a coffee lover in your family or a friend, and of course, their gift cards. Make sure you go to bonefrogcoffee.com/gold shields. Use the promo code Gold Shields, get a great percentage off your purchase and a subscription. Bonefrogcoffee.com/Gold Shields, promo code Gold
Best
Shields.
coffee I've ever
And then
drank,
one more.
guys. No nonsense. The best and all I drink now. Get Bone Frog. It's a even if you don't know the guy who makes it, it doesn't matter. It's the best stuff there is. It happens to be made by somebody who's a phenomenal individual. So get yourself some Bone Frog.
Absolutely. That's all Danny drinks. So that says a lot. The other announcement we got, we actually just got about 20 minutes ago from our great friend, Randy Sutton, who's the founder, CEO of the Wounded Blue, who is one of our closest affiliates. We've been close with Randy and the Wounded Blue since the beginning of this show. He was one of the first people we hooked up with, and for good reason. The Wounded Blue provides support to wounded officers around this entire country, not just physically, but mentally also. And Randy does so many great fundraisers to provide more funding for the Wounded Blue and officers throughout this country. It's an amazing, amazing organization. And Randy was working on this one project for almost a year. We talked about it. He was close. It wasn't close. And it finally all got done. And it is really, really wild. It's called Guitars for Cops. And what Randy was able to do was get all these incredible country singers to sign a guitar. There's 100 guitars that are for sale. And some of the names are George Strait, Miranda Lambert, Reba McEntire, Kid Rock, Toby Keith, Blake Shelton, Dierks Bentley,
Dan
Chris
Murphy.
Young, Jamie Jamie Johnson, the Oak Ridge Boys, Aaron Lewis, Gabby Barnett, and a
So
bunch
only
of
the biggest
others.
names in country
All right,
music. That's
one.
all.
Right. There's 100 guitars that all these individuals signed, okay? They're for fans, corporate partners, and anyone supporting law enforcement. They're $1,000, okay? But it's all tax deductible, and it all goes to the Wounded Blue, all right? So make sure you go to guitars4cops.com. Get involved in this. It's a great organization, and it's a great reason to back them up. The Wounded Blue, you can always reach Randy at thewoundedblue.org is his email. You can email him directly. One more time, guitars4cops.com. We're really, really proud to be involved in this, and Randy asking us to read that for him. So make sure you go with that, back up the Wounded Blue. So, Dan, we got sort of a good guess for our season finale show.
His resume's a little thin.
I don't think
a little thin on the resume.
a little bit. We need to get people with a resume and have done something in their lives. But once in a while, we'll come up with people like Andrew Sully Sullivan, who, he only had a 20-year career in the U.S. Navy. 6 years in SEAL Team 2, 11 years in developmental group. Unreal. I mean, the resume, I could sit here and you could sit here, Dan, for a half hour going over his resume, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to simply let Sully talk about himself, which he may not like, but he's going to do it anyway because that's the show. So, Sully, welcome to Gold Shields, my man, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me. And hey, I want to second the Bone Frog coffee, man.
Isn't it?
Legit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know Timmy, right?
I know of him. We never worked together, but we've crossed paths from
Dynamite
time to time.
individual. Dynamite man.
Yeah, it's good
So
stuff.
good.
I could use
Yep.
some right now. I'm still recovering from
Oh,
Army Navy,
really?
so it's been a struggle. Yeah, they tried to kill me up there, guys.
Had nothing to do with the result of the game, just the overall atmosphere?
It's under protest. Didn't
Yeah.
happen. He was across the line. Navy won. We're no, not giving it to him.
That's all you gotta say. That
Yeah,
works.
Was a great game, though. It was a
Uh,
great game.
you know,
it was a good
it,
game.
yeah, it was. I mean, I got home to watch the end of it. And you know what? You know, being a sports fan, you get tense watching it. You're sitting at home, you have nothing to do with the game. You know, whether win or lose, it doesn't matter. But you just get that chill watching, a play like that at the end and the game on the line, all that good stuff.
And it's just a different kind of football than you're used to seeing on Saturdays, right? Because old school teams and they run, they play, strategy, and man, it's hard nosed football, old school. So it's kind of cool to see. And obviously, there's a lot of fan support at those things. So
And the celebration of it and it is so overwhelming. It's great to
it is.
see that patriotism in one spot at one time. With the uniforms, whether you're Army, whether you're Navy, whatever, but everyone being there in one spot is so spectacular to watch.
It
The
really is. The
flyovers,
Kraft
all that.
family. Oh
Yep.
yeah, the Kraft family Gillette did a fantastic job. It's the first time they played it up there. The city of Boston just opened up. It was
Wow,
pretty
that's cool.
phenomenal.
That's really cool.
Uh, so listen, we're gonna get right into this because there's so much to talk about, and we've had we've had Navy SEALs on before, uh, and it's kind of funny how not funny, but it's interesting, I should say. Each one we talk to has a different kind of path, has a different story, has a different, view of it. And that's what's so interesting with talking to guys from the teams. Uh, their view of it varies of why they got into it, how they got into it. And that's where we're going to start with you. Your attraction to the military and then your path to the teams. How'd that all go?
I mean, this might sound a little strange, but I was never particularly attracted to the military. I was attracted to the team specifically, and I feel like I didn't choose the teams; that the teams chose me. I I had the idea in my head for a long time of wanting to go in and trying to be a SEAL, but it was such a big commitment. And I was a little bit older when I went in 24, and at that point in time, the thought of leaving my job, leaving my family, and going and doing it, and if I get hurt, if I fail, then where am I at? I'm on a boat. So for me, the motivation wasn't there until 9/11 happened, and that was it. And then it clicked. It's like it was a calling. I knew I needed to do something, and the only thing I wanted to do was be up in the front, um, helping make our country safe. So first chance I got, I went out and I found a recruiter and said, "When can I get up to boot camp? I want to be a SEAL." And as soon as they got me out of there, I went to boot camp, ended up in Buds, and it was all
Well,
downhill from there.
Tom and I were, as you probably know, first responders to the World Trade Center. We worked there for months in various capacities, dealing with the effects of that attack. It happened in our hometown. We lost friends. We lost people we grew up with. All of it. So anytime somebody tells a story about being motivated by that to go into the military, especially at the high level you did, I have so much respect and gratitude for what you did. Thank you. Because as we stood on that pile and our job was to look for people, if not people parts, all we could think was, I feel like somebody just held my arms behind my back and is punching away at my stomach and I can't fight back. Somebody's got to answer for this. Somebody has to take it to these people that did this. So thank you for being part of the team that took it to them. Thank you.
It's reciprocated. Trust me. Right? We have so much respect for you guys, and I appreciate everything you've done throughout your careers, and that's why I do what I do now. Just because that holds true to your community as well, and kills me to see some of the press you guys get these days. And I want to do everything I think I can do to change that
Yeah,
narrative.
and
So
we'll get into that, right?
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, and that was a big part of starting the show. and that was one of the conversations Dan and I had in the beginning of this of bringing attention to great things that are happening instead of the garbage you see on a daily basis. Because there's so many stories like yours and you that no one knows about and should know about. Because you being that age and seeing 9/11, you could have had a totally different response to it. Being you weren't 18, you out of high school, going into the military, you were older. You could have had a totally different response to that, but just felt this calling, as you called it, which is a perfect description because that's what it is, to go and then not even just go into the military, which probably was their highest recruiting time was after 9/11 in every branch of the service. But you were going to go to the most elite force this country has to offer. And that's a big commitment. That's not just, okay, I'm going to go to boot camp and get deployed somewhere. That is a life-changing decision.
Absolutely. I've always been competitive, and if I'm going to do something, I want to be the best at it. So that was kind of my intention. And to be completely honest, I didn't know a ton about the SEAL teams other than maybe reading a few books. Dick Marchenko and seeing Charlie Sheen in his movie in the late '80s and early '90s, right? And that was it. And I'm like, yeah, that's for me, guys. I need to do that. I need to be on the front lines. I want to protect my family and my community, and the way that I felt like I could do that was being up there in the front with those warriors, and that's what I tried to do.
So you had a number of
Wow.
deployments.
And how was Buds?
Oh, yeah, buds. Yeah.
Buds,
Yeah.
I mean, if you wake up for the next 8 months, jump in a cold shower, and then kick each other in the nuts, that's buds right there. It just it doesn't stop. It's draining, and I say this a lot. At 24, 25 in buds is rough compared to 18 to 21. Your body just doesn't heal the same way. Not that I'm complaining, because mentally it's a lot easier at that age. Physically, it's harder, but if you have the right mindset and you want something bad enough, you're willing to endure the physical pain and the mental anguish in order to make it happen. And that was my mindset going into it. I knew it was going to suck. I didn't particularly know how, but I knew it was going to suck. And you just take everything one evolution at a time, one day at a time, and you just make it through the day to the next day, make it through the week to the next week, to the month to the next month, and phase, and then you're through it, and then it gets hard, right? And then you really understand what dedication and hard work is after you make it through buds.
So what follows buds? You have several different schools you go to, correct?
Yeah, it changes every now and again. When I was there, we went buds to jump school. Back then, we did Army jump school, and now Navy has their own one, which was rough. Not rough that it was hard. It was just the pace was so much slower than we had just finished. So a lot of guys wound up going down there and getting in trouble. I say a lot, a few guys, but back to San Diego, and then we do SQT, which is SEAL qualification training. Which, if you think of buds, is just a physical test. You don't really learn much. SQT is the advanced training where you start to learn basic tactics and marksmanship and orientation and other things that will be useful to you when you actually get to the team. And it's more of a gentleman's course. You're not really getting messed with the way you are in buds. You're first name basis with your instructors, and typically guys don't get dropped or quit from SQT. So it's you start to actually feel like you're a team guy at that point. And you finish it up. You go do 3 weeks of cold weather training in Alaska, which is a lot of fun, and then you end up at your team, whatever team you go to.
Now, one of the little misconceptions, you're not a SEAL after Buds,
No,
correct? Right.
correct.
And that's a
You're
big misconception. There's a lot of people who think that. So when do you actually get your trident?
So it's ever changing. There was a time where you would get your trident after buds, then it got changed to after SQT. I can't remember. God, I should know this. Say the mind's the first thing to go, or the memory is the first thing to go, right?
I can't remember
I,
which.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I can't remember. Go figure. So either way, I think now it's after SQT. So right when you're done. And man, and even back in the day, it might still happen. You check up to the team, and they would take your trident away and make you earn it because you really haven't earned it at that part. You've only gotten through the training. You haven't worked with the team that you're going to deploy with. So, I remember stories when I got to team two. They used to have they call it the bird cage because the trident, they also call it your bird. And they would take it and they would put it in the bird cage, and you wouldn't get it back until you earned it back. And could take up to a year. Yeah. So, I mean, it's you want something bad enough, you're going to do it, and you're going to put up with it, and you're every day. And I kind of live my life like this, and I teach this every day. I treat like a selection every day, even to this day. Someone's watching me and wants my job. And if I'm not doing it well enough or getting better at it, then they're going to take my job. And that's the philosophy you need to have from buds to the day you retire. And then if you want to be successful in retirement, I would
That's a
still do
great
it.
point because it really is a mindset that'll carry you to success in any occupation. If you think about it, look at the NFL.
It
You
is.
better be
Yeah.
watching over your shoulder, right? You're being watched by everybody. Look at corporate America. You're being watched by everybody and evaluated on a regular basis. It's just the way it is in life, right? You're as good as your last performance.
It is. Yeah. And then the reward system's different, right? If I don't do my job, then I'm not the guy on the mission. Somebody else is. And I want to be the guy on the mission. So, NFL, you don't do your job, you lose money. It affects your paycheck. You're not a starter anymore.
Right. Absolutely right. So you go to SEAL Team 2 to start things off.
I did.
Now, do you get to you just get placed there? Is it a kind of manpower thing, or is there
Green
a
sheet.
kind of wish list?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So you have a wish list and you can pick your top three teams. And to be honest, at that time, it didn't really matter. It mattered more, um, I don't know, early in the 90s up into the early 2000s, the teams would have different parts of the world. So if you were at team two, you were that cold weather team. Team four, you were going to South America. So guys wanted to be in certain areas, they would pick certain teams, but they changed that around with the rotation cycle where all the teams are really they're going where the war is at this point. So I knew I wanted to be on the East Coast. That's where my wife was from, and my family's all East Coast, and my top three picks were East Coast teams, and I don't know that two was one of them. It probably was, um, and that's where I ended up. So I was fine with that, and I knew two was one of the original SEAL teams, and had a long history and a legacy, and I was actually really excited about that. And yeah, no complaints. And I showed up, and they were on deployment, so there was a lot of painting walls and sweeping floors until they got back.
Wow.
Yeah,
Made
talk
buds
about a
worth it, huh?
letdown. Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to war. And they're like, pick up that paintbrush.
While your trident is
Yeah,
sitting in a
yeah, yeah.
birdcage, and you can't
Yeah,
even
right.
have
Well,
that.
thank God that wasn't happening when I was there. I don't know what I would have done. Yeah,
But you know what? I've said this before, and Dan had mentioned it right before we went, right before we started the show, of how much respect we have for Navy SEALs. And I had mentioned this. I use a lot of sports analogies because I'm a sports freak.
I do the same
That
thing.
trident is the Stanley Cup, the Heisman,
The
the World
Lombardi
Series
Trophy.
trophy, the NFL, the Lombardi trophy, all wrapped up into one, as far as I'm concerned. That is the absolute top of the line in my world. And Dan, we both share that. Uh, that's why it means so much to have you on the show.
I
It just
appreciate it.
means a lot because it's not a normal accomplishment. It's not it's not easy. It is maybe the hardest thing you've ever done. Uh, and then deploying, obviously, is another level.
Well, I was married, so that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But that Trident's a close second, right? Yeah. Just kidding, guys. God, just kidding.
Touche.
Can we go off the air for a minute? Because I got a lot to say about that, but I'm going to leave it.
Notice I said was married. Yeah. No, 100%. Like and, we joke that's just the hallmark of our community. We're these weird guys that we're in the middle of a combat situation and we're cracking jokes. It's scientific, or yeah, I don't know if scientific is a word, but psychologically proven to be an asset in that type of situation. And for me, the Trident really was what I wanted and worked for, and I worked every day to keep it. And you got to have that mentality that that thing's on loan until I finish. And every day, we have a saying, earn your trident every day. And I did. And it just goes along with the mentality we just talked about. So, a lot of people try, most people try and don't get it. And in the same token, a lot of people get it and die wearing it. And, it is the one of the most cherished things I have, obviously second to my kids, but yeah, it means the world to me. So
And rightly so.
Yeah, that's so powerful what you just said. Wow.
And rightly so. Wow. We could probably do a show with you for an hour and a half, just scratching the surface of some of the things that you saw and learned and did in the SEALs. And we don't mean to be dismissive of that, but we do want to talk about, and one of the things we have seen on our other guests who have been SEALs is you continue that life of service, that life of selflessness, because it's really what it is. And what you're doing right now really intrigues Tom and I. And we love it, and it couldn't be more timely. So please, if you don't mind, if there's anything else you want to share from your SEAL career, by all means. But we're anxious to dive into what it is you're involved in now and why.
yeah, well, I guess I'll just have to come back on, guys. That
You
sounded
you
like
got
an
an open
invite, right?
invitation. Trust me.
Okay.
Open.
Absolutely.
Open. Are you
Anytime
kidding
you
me?
want.
All right. We should do an in-person one with some beers and maybe some whiskey or something, and then we'll have a real conversation, right?
Oh, well, that is going to
Absolutely.
happen for
Is
sure.
that like arm twisting going on right there? You feel that? Yeah.
I
That's
am
gonna
so
happen.
there. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. I tell people I've always been motivated by service. And for me, going into the military was about serving my community and my family and my friends. And when I medically retired in 2020, and I wanted to teach, and I wanted to teach law enforcement along with anybody else who wanted to learn this critical skill set that I just developed over the last 2 decades. So I started a training company, and honestly, most of the people I was training were tier one special operations and government agencies and the occasional SWAT team. And the reason being is you want guys with my background, you're paying for guys with my background. And most police departments couldn't afford it. So really all the police training I was doing was me just volunteering for guys I already knew because I had a lot of relationships developed through my career. I've been training cops my entire time in the military. It's just how we give back to the community that takes care of us while we're overseas. And 2020 to 2021, I'm out here making money teaching people and watching all these critical incidents play out on TV and getting to watch firsthand on body cameras or security cameras, and then seeing the outrage from some people in the public and watching officers get charged or careers ruined or disciplined. And I'm thinking, man, it's not their fault. That's how they've been taught to handle these situations, and you're persecuting these guys and women. And I think, man, if they just did this one thing different in training or added this one thing to training, that wouldn't have happened. And that's kind of where the idea came up of, well, how do we get these guys the training? Guys, I'll say guys, but I mean men and women. It's ambiguous. So I started a nonprofit. I reached out to an Army, tier one Army operator that I was friends with at the time. And I reached out to Paul Fitzgerald, who is the retired superintendent of Boston Police. And I pitched them my idea and I said, hey guys, can you help? And they loved the idea. And that's what we did. So last year, January timeframe, I started the nonprofit. I reached out to all my contacts for help with building my business plan and getting some seed money to start this thing. And what do I need to do? Talking to police officers. What do you want? What do you need? How can I service your organization, your community, so you guys, feel comfortable going into a situation, specifically or primarily active shooter or active terror. And I got all that feedback, and I built a course. And in August of last year, we went hot, and we started primarily in Massachusetts because I grew up there, and I am very close with a lot of Boston police officers. And I also strategically thought if I could take a bunch of Navy SEALs and Army special operators and bring them into a liberal state like Massachusetts and sell them on me training cops on tactics, that I could take that anywhere. And they loved it. Absolutely. I've gotten money from the state both years, last year and this year. I have a line item on their budget, and it's gone up, and hopefully it'll keep going up. We are teaching fundamental tactics. Just hey, this is how you enter a building where someone's trying to take lives, and this is how you do it the right way. And we do scenario based training, so these officers are put into stressful situations where they have to problem solve. And the first time they see it isn't when there's an actual event going on. And it's like all we've close to 850 officers, I think, trained so far. We've raised $650,000 in 16 months, and we are going strong. I've got calls from 16 departments in 16 different states. And right now, my only limiting factor is I just don't have enough money. And I mean, you can give me $100 million, and I wouldn't have enough money because there are that many officers that we want to help. So that's
I
it.
have, so much that's alright, I'm
Sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
but I saw an interview you did recently, and, I don't know if it was recently, had to be. You talked about the deficiency in training in police world, and you're absolutely right, and even departments that think that they're training enough really aren't. I mean, there's nobody in the world trains more than the Navy SEALs, you know that. If you're not in combat, you're training because you gotta be your muscle memory has to kick in, it has to be second nature. And Tom and I were just talking the other day, and we've talked about this before. The NYPD, for all its good intentions, had too many cops and too old school of a style and an approach towards things like firearms and tactics training. It simply is outdated and it's not sufficient at all to get you to where you should be should you come into a critical incident situation. And those of us who've been on the street and did our time and worked in heavy, busy places know that you pick up more by watching the veterans than anything else that you'll ever learn we called it the fun house up in the Bronx. But as well meaning as it is, they just didn't prioritize it the way they should have. If you want to save the city, if you want to save funerals, if you want to save lawsuits, if you want to make the optics better, you got to train your people better. And they just don't seem to get that, right? I think it's an epidemic across the country. Law enforcement is we're understaffed. We got to have people on the street. So we'll bring you in once a year for your 1 day of firearms and tactics and then back out. And that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is. And they're training to shoot a qual. They're not training to be in a shooting situation, right? And that's across the country. There are departments that are more progressive, but they still need help. And there's organizations out there teaching it, but and a lot of the curriculums are decent, but not most of them, and they need to be upgraded. And yeah, I try to. I always preface this with this. I will staunchly defend law enforcement. I'll defend cops all day long, but I think we need to hold cities, departments, and the policymakers accountable because we're not providing the level of training that needs to be out there. And it's I'm talking very specifically about less than 1% of an officer's job, right? That's it. I think on the whole, police officers do a fantastic, amazing job at what they do. And I'm appreciative that I have people like you guys out there willing to defend me and my family domestically. But the thing that happens the least in a police officer's career is to be in an active shooting or to be in a situation where you shoot, right? Less than half cops out there will ever shoot their gun real world. So you're playing the game of odds. Like the odds of this happening to me are so slim. Why should I invest in training that's going to teach me how to handle a situation that I probably won't be in my career? Unfortunately, when it does happen, it's catastrophic, right? And then it leads to lawsuits, which cost the cities more money than they would have paid probably if they had just paid for the training from the get go. And that may not, New York might not fit that bill just because you guys are so big, but most places it does. So, that's until that time comes, and I'm an advocate for that as well. And until that time comes, I'm just going to give this training away because I want you guys to have the knowledge that I have. I spent my entire career training and being in active shooter situations. That's it. I didn't have to go down and give tickets. I didn't have to go respond to domestics. I had to go hunt people that wanted to kill Americans, and I got really good at it. As did all the guys that I worked with. I want to pass that knowledge on. That's it.
It's amazing. I mean, to take that on, and we've said it on other shows, that the correlation between the military and law enforcement are close. You know, they're you see so much commonality in what we do. What was the question I have for you? What was the one I'm sure you did before you got into this and started really getting out there, your research of problems that were going on in police departments. What was the one tactical error that kept seeing that you said, okay, that has to change?
I wish I could say there was one. Yeah, I mean, it's I and I mean this. Here's what I'll say: the easiest way that I can fix, and what I do the most, is I change the. I focus on fundamentals, and I think there's a really significant lack of fundamentals in training of law enforcement. Whether you want to talk about at the academy level for patrol officers or in SWAT teams, because they want the latest and greatest, but they have to master the fundamentals before they can start adding things onto their daily routine. So when I've come in to train these departments, there really isn't a basic understanding of how to enter a room, how to clear a corner, fields of fire, weapons discipline. It's it is day one, week one, and that's stuff that needs to be taught in the academy. Like, you shouldn't be bringing me in to teach someone how to transition from a rifle to a pistol, right? That should be taught in the academy. You should be bringing me in to teach someone how to go find an active shooter safely as possible and eliminate the threat. But my training has to start with the things that haven't been taught, and that's
So I've heard
fundamentals.
you talk about when to shoot, when not to shoot, how to know the difference, and how to employ tactics that can help you avoid using that deadly physical force. And even as a SEAL, it was kind of surprising for me to read you talk about this. How SEALs, it's not just about shooting people. I mean, if you can avoid that, you're looking to do that as well. That to me was kind of yeah.
Hundred
So
percent.
tell me a little bit about that. Now, we have all, I think we can all agree, we've seen body cam footage of situations with officers go not the right way in the past few years in this country, and some of it has to do with the cuffs being put on cops and restraint and defunding, that all kinds of pressure and heat, and cops are not acting the same way and they're being trained in a different way. And when you see an officer backing up and backing up and backing up and letting somebody come at them, I want to lose my mind. I want to yell into the video I'm watching, what are you doing? But it's failure to understand de-escalation tactics, failure to understand how to take control of a situation and be in control as opposed to looking like you're on the run. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in policing that Tom and I didn't experience. And so when it comes to that, knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot, tell me a little bit about that and about some of the stuff you would be training them on, because that's a really important moment, you know?
Yeah, and there's this conception, and I've had people interview me actually say this, that SEALs go in and they just wreak havoc and kill everybody, and that's it. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? We are a surgical unit and very strategic. And I kill one innocent person overseas, and it may change the perception of that community towards our, the reason that we're there. So for me, the hardest thing in combat I've ever done is not take a shot. And I said this on another show, and I'll say it again. I've never lost a second of sleep over someone I've killed. Never, not one. But I've lost probably months of my life over someone that I didn't shoot. And the reason being is, there are ROEs. I have to abide by them. And there are, obviously times where you're on the cusp and you don't know, but you have to follow your ROEs. And well, what if I didn't take that shot and that person went and blew up an American convoy and killed a bunch of Americans? Like, that weighs heavy on me. That's the stuff I think about. With regards to the tactics of law enforcement, I think if you provide someone with the right tools, then they're going to have more options to employ. So if you don't train officers how to respond tactically to situations where it could potentially become violent, then they're going 0 to 100 instantly. So they hit that red line, and their first thing is, well, let me pull my gun. If I can teach them how to maneuver tactically, how to set up that L, how to take cover, distance, angles, all these things we talk about in my course, it becomes a natural de-escalation technique, because you're now putting yourself into a better position to make decisions over time instead of having to make that split second decision because you allowed someone to close the distance and now they have a knife or they have a gun or they don't have a weapon at all, but you don't know it because you've allowed yourself to be compromised. So, I don't call myself a de-escalation instructor, but I think you're going to get more in the way of de-escalation than most de-escalation courses by going through a course that I'm teaching for that reason.
So the training that you do is, let me cut you off, Tom. Go ahead. If you had a point you would make.
No, no,
When
no,
you
no.
look at
Nope.
somebody's in a critical situation, and it can be something that's going to escalate either to a fist fight or a knife or a gun, and you're a cop and you're there in uniform or plain clothes, you're dealing with the situation. In order to de-escalate, you have to be calm. You can't be in a state of high agitation and de-escalate another person. Doesn't work. It's like yelling at somebody, "Calm down." Has anybody ever calmed down when they've been yelled at and told to calm down? No, it doesn't work. So how do you stay calm in those situations? It's training, realistic training.
It is. You have to be put in those situations. Yeah, that's everything we do is realistic. We if you were to ask me what I teach problem solving under stress. That's it. Problem solving under stress. And you can apply that to every part of your job. A traffic stop. You can apply that to a warrant service, a domestic response, an active shooter, right? I chose the hardest response, which is that active shooter act of terror, because now I can downgrade it to other less critical incidents, which could immediately turn into a significant critical incident, right? So, and that's it. Problem solving. That you have to put people under stress to teach them how to work under stress, and that doesn't happen in the majority of policing today. It doesn't. And if it does, it's a 40, at most a 40-hour course. Usually it's an 8-hour course, one day in service training. That's it.
And Dan and I had said that we actually had a conversation last night about just the problems going on in police departments, and what drives you nuts is, the whole defund the police thing that was going on, and still kind of reels its ugly head every once in a while, and people don't realize that the first thing that gets cut is training, because it's easy. Just cut it out of the budget, done and finished. And then the community people wonder why things are going wrong, or police departments wonder why things are going wrong, because the hours that are needed to train a cop how to do, like you said, be in a stressful situation isn't there. And it's not, again, not we've all been there, you on a completely different level than Dan and I, but stressful situations are not easy. They're hard, and your mind is going in 1,000 directions at 1,000 miles an hour, and you have to try to compartmentalize all that to come to a good ending. And that's only going to come, like you said, Sully, training and over and over and over again. And the quicker these departments just get on, and I think a good part of it is leadership too, and realizing that the leaders of these departments need their men and women to be on point.
Agreed. And we've had this issue in the military. A lot of what we do in the military is antiquated. We're very fortunate in the soft world where we walk the gray and we break away from some of that military mindset to be able to get things done. And it doesn't happen in the most of the military. Law enforcement's that way too, right? On the training side, if you think about the majority of your training comes on the job, right? But so how do you train on the job for something that may happen once in your career? Right? It's really you can't is the answer. And then for the people that are teaching it, if you're self-training, which happens a lot in policing because it's budget friendly, right? So now you have officers that have never been in a situation teaching how to respond to that situation. And then it just gets perpetuated generation after generation. And in the SEAL teams, we changed the culture, and I would spend 12 months training for a 4-month deployment, right? So 1 year for me to go overseas, 4 years, it would be very specific, a lot of it to what I was going to be on doing on that deployment. Law enforcement at best is 40 hours of training a year in service training. How can you expect a response to a critical incident like an active shooter, an act of terror, based on a 40-hour training schedule per year? So, and I don't know that I have the solution, my thought initially was, hey, we need more officers and we need a training schedule. Like work for 3 weeks, train for 1 week every month. So plus up 25% so you can go on a rotation where now you are getting 1 week of training every month and still getting paid for it. You know, to me, that would help not just the training side, it would help the mental health side, it would help the officers would be, I think, a lot happier. Your home life would probably be a little bit better because you're getting a little downtime. So I don't know. I don't know if that's something cops would even be interested in, right? I don't know, but
Well,
I
I
know
think
for
as
a
you look
fact it
at the
would help.
policing profession in general in America, the last couple of years, it's almost like in a lot of cities, it's been thrown out on the table. All right, we're willing to take a look at everything to see how it can be done better. Training is absolutely vital, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think some people might think that would be a lot, but if you made that training valuable and you made it very relevant and pertinent to what it is a cop does every day, and not, and I think how many training sessions you sit in that are about, "Oh, you have to watch this hour-long training video on OSHA, workplace safety, right? Now go out and work the streets of the South Bronx on a midnight. Yeah, workplace safe. What really? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you do because it checks a box. But if you think about it, putting people in stressful situations, giving them alternatives and ways to deal with certain situations and making it muscle memory as opposed to I don't know what to do in this situation, or I'm having a bad day, so this guy yelled at me, so I went off on him. That kind of stuff stops a lot of trouble in its path. It really does. Do I think that the profession would embrace it? Not right now, to say the least. I think you're seeing that
No,
firsthand.
no,
But it would be
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I think a lot of the younger cops would really enjoy it, and I see when I do these trainings, they're voluntary for the most part. They put it out there, and whatever cops from the departments want to come, they come. And it's a lot of young cops. There's some older ones, men and women, and the people that come are
Well,
excited to be there, and they
go
want
ahead, Tom.
more. And you know,
No, I was just gonna say we one time, and it just popped into my head just remembering this as you're talking. When I got into anti-crime in '94, uh, we went for a training one time. It was one night down in the South Bronx in a empty area, vacant area of the South Bronx near the stadium, actually. And there were a bunch of streets, closed stores and warehouses and all that. But what we did that night was the best training night I ever had on the job. We were literally in our cars, fly around the corner, jump out, chase a guy. Now he was another cop, but it was a scenario. Chase him down the street, get into an altercation and all that. And you think about it in 30 years, now we go into details you know, that doesn't fit or whatever, but you think about in a 30-year career, I did that
one
night,
time
one night, and got
experiential learning,
more
right?
more
Experiential
out of
learning. Yeah.
right, and got more out of that night than 30 years ago into the range.
That's what we call our annual firearms and tactics section qualification is the outdoor range. So you got to go to the range one day a year, and you go there, and your 50
That's it.
rounds are what count, and you go home, and you're qualified, and everybody goes out drinking, basically.
And
And
you
then you
think
get in
about
and then there's a
sorry
shooting,
about
and
that.
the NYPD wonders why their miss rate is 80%.
I had a department rate recently, and sometimes if they have the ability to do it, we'll do a range day. And when I do my range day, it's how we apply it tactically. I'm not necessarily going in there and talking about form and function. I'm talking about, hey, angles and distance, and this is shooting offhand, shooting while moving, things that they can take into an active shooter situation. And we'll set them up to practice, and we'll give them a center target, a black dot, and they'll be pretty good from 5-7 yards. And then I'll add just a little bit of stress, and people are off the target, and that's 7 feet away or 7 yards away. Now think about those officers responding to an active shooter in a school with a bunch of kids, and they have to take a shot where if they miss, that round's continuing on until it hits something else. You have to own every round that comes out of your gun as a police officer, every single round. And
I was gonna say, every
No,
year we went
please.
out to the outdoor range, and the firearms and tactics section guys would give us a sit down first before we went out to the range. And the sit down was a number of things. They go over basics, and it's not bad. They do the right thing in certain ways, but they will talk about hit potential. They'll say, "All right, last year, 2023, in New York City, NYPD had, 152 gunfights or whatever, 600 rounds sent down range, and a total of 12 people dead, 6 cops shot." They give us all the stats. And then they say our hit potential was 18%. 18 out of every 100 rounds fired hit the intended target. Where did the other 82 go? It's New York City. It's congested. They're going into walls, into grandma's head. Who knows where they go? But the problem is, then they took us out in the range and did a standard qual. All right, from the 7-yard line, 3 rounds,
Yeah.
one hand unsupported on the whistle.
Yeah,
No,
don't change,
right?
don't change. Yeah,
Right.
every department I go to, and I start shooting and moving and asking them to do some not even complicated. It's the first time in their career that they've ever done it, and that it's pretty mind boggling, right? And it's because we're set in that antiquated way, and we're just not ready or willing to change. And I'm trying to introduce that at the departmental headshed level, like, hey, this isn't difficult. Your instructors can take what I just taught and teach it all the time. It's not hard, and we just got to familiarize and introduce people to some of the stuff that we're doing. And it doesn't have to be with me. There are other companies with tier one guys teaching this stuff. I don't think there's any other nonprofits, but I know guys that on their weekends will go teach their hometown police department just because they want to give them the training.
And
It's
like everything else, the bad part of this is, and we've all experienced it, wait till something bad happens. And then maybe we'll change it, and maybe we'll tweak this. But, especially in the NYPD, Dan, that always seemed to be the problem. Wait till
what,
something
what
happens.
what
I mean,
changed since Uvalde? What changed? What's changed since Uvalde? Nothing. And I hate to say that Uvalde's the standard in most places. That is the standard response. Maybe not what happened, but the level of training of the officers who responded to Uvalde. At least half of those officers had active shooter training, and it still happened, right? Because they don't train experientially, right? They don't set up scenarios in most cases. I know it does happen in some places, but not everywhere. So, if we're not taking, and this is the whole thing I was telling you guys, I did an AAR for the marathon bombing with Fitzy, and if you're not taking that critical data, that lessons learned, and then applying it to how you change your develop your training routine and your curriculum, then it's a waste of time. And unfortunately, that's what seems to be happening with a lot of these critical incidents. It's national news and then it dies down, but nothing really changes. Oh, great. Hey, we're going to do an 8 hour course where we have someone teach you a curriculum that was written by a police officer who's never been in an active shooting situation. What is an officer going to learn from that? Nothing, right? But the city can then check a box. Hey, I don't know why they
Make the
failed. They had
lawyers
active
happy,
shooter
make the
training.
risk managers happy. The insurance company says you had to do it, so we did it. City Hall said we had to do it, so we did it, and we're good. Move on. No, it's not the answer. I agree with you, and it needs to be looked at differently. I remember distinctly 1984. I became a cop, and I was sent out in the street with a 10-layer Kevlar point blank vest, which they sold us at the time, and this is what they always maintained in NYPD. Your vest has to be able to stop your gun in the event that a cop behind you shoots you or somebody grabs your gun and shoots you. Now, a 38 compared to the guns we were picking up off the street and in apartments, machine guns, AKs, Uzis, 9 millimeters, 45, we were commonly coming up with guns like that. The most common is your basic moron 25. They're out there, but by and large, they're heavier caliber weapons than we were wearing protection against. And I had a 6-shot Smith and Wesson with an ammo pouch that was hard plastic, and if you opened it, it rolled the rounds down into the street. And we had a young cop named Scott Goodell die in the line of duty, got shot right through his head because he was trying to reload in a gunfight with a drug dealer in Queens. And that's a travesty. That should never happen. But we were sent out to do a man's job with a kid's tools. And that happens too often, right?
Still happening. Still happening. I mean, there's big city departments where officers don't
Look at
have
LA,
rifles.
right?
You know,
LA,
they,
the
you know,
West Hollywood
and
bank, robbery situation happened, like, what, 10, 15 years ago, something like that? Those guys with 9s, and there was tons of them, were completely outgunned.
they weren't making their shots, right? And yeah, again, a lesson learned that nobody's teaching. Not well, I shouldn't say nobody. Not a lot of people are teaching that, and that could easily happen again, easily. And the marathon bombing is another one that could happen again. But I told you guys I did a lecture out in California, and I asked a lot of the officers, "Hey, how many people have read this AAR?" The second most significant terrorist attack in our country in recent years, right? And not, I would say less than a quarter of the people there had actually seen the AAR, and that's kind of mind-boggling to me that hasn't
You
happened.
have a military approach where AARs mean something.
I do, and that was the whole point of the speech is the relevance of our process and how we learn. Everything we do, we AAR. Everything, training, anything. It doesn't matter. We sit down and we AAR, and how can we make it better? And we do change, and we change. And if it doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board and we try something else until we get it right. Because we don't want to figure out we have a problem in combat. We want to figure it out in training. And I point to Valdi and I look at the AAR from that, and I think 99% of the AAR points could have been figured out in a training environment, and it wasn't. It was figured out while kids were dying, and that's to me that's the worst part of that whole situation, other than the loss of life, is the fact that it could have been prevented with proper training, and it's frustrating, but it also is why we're trying to make this change and trying to be make a difference in this community and doing it at no charge to the departments.
And that's why, it is you can't find, I mean, I can't find the words of how great what you're doing is. Because you're taking, and everyone, our followers, our watchers, our listeners understand this. This is a guy who was at the most elite level of the military you can be, okay? On a team, in development group, which everyone can Google and figure out what that is without us getting into it. Uh, and now taking what you did and passing it to law enforcement. That's incredible. I mean, even to take that mantle on, to say, I have all these skills in me, me sitting on the couch watching football with all these skills in me, what's that going to do? And you're taking a new mission on to pass on your expertise so a cop doesn't get hurt. Or you can get into a school and save some kids. I mean, it's an incredible accomplishment, Sully, really. And I don't mean to get all like that, but it's so impressive, really.
I mean, it's all to me. It's all about community safety. I told you before, I'm service oriented. I wanted to protect my friends, family, community. It's the same thing now. I want to protect my friends, family, community. I have kids that go to school. I want the cops that respond to my kid's school, if the unlikely event that it ever happens, to know what they're doing and be
That's
the
right.
best
Not be
possible person for
fumbling
the
and
job.
and scared and crapping
It's
their pants at the unknown as opposed to having been through realistic scenario training.
at least they have a fighting chance. And I'm not making Navy SEALs out of police officers, right? I'm just I have 18 years of experience and lessons learned from all that training and all those combat operations that I can help teach some fundamental skills and lessons learned that might save your life or might save a child's life or a family member
You
or a
know,
community
a
member's
thought
life,
comes to
right?
my mind, and it's
That's it.
this. People who join the profession of the military and the police assume a risk, and the risk is that you may get into a critical incident, you may lose your life, get hurt, you may have to take someone's life. These are risks that are part of the job. When you take it, you assume those risks, you make a commitment, and you dedicate yourself towards protecting others. They make that level of commitment. And if I'm talking right now to anybody who is a city manager, who is a police chief, I would challenge you to make the same commitment back, to train them and give them the tools and training they need to be successful. Because when people are as committed as the average person is that goes into law enforcement, the people backing them need to be as committed to their success as they are. So I would challenge them to look up what you're doing, to listen to what you're saying about the vital importance of realistic training from people who have been there again and again and again. So I can't say it enough fervently. Tom and I, we get frustrated when we see men and women being sent out on the street, ill equipped, ill trained to do a job that is life and death. And we bury too many people.
Absolutely. That's well said, Dan. Well said.
So Sully, how do they get in touch with you? How does a department, hopefully that's watching this, how do they get you?
Well, c1p.org. That's the website. You can go there. I can be emailed and reach through there. You have my social media links. Community underscore first underscore project is my Instagram. My personal one is Sully underscore C1P. By all means, reach out to me if I can help in any way. We're starting to push into New York. We've trained a few departments already, but that means we're going to start fundraising in New York. So anybody that wants to help on the fundraising side, if you have any listeners that want to sponsor training, we've actually had a lot of success with people sponsoring their neighborhood or their community's police departments. Also, any local businesses or even national businesses that want to get involved and sponsor us, we're happy to do it and rep your brand and get people trained so our communities can be safer. So that's it. And any officer that has any questions can reach out to me at any time. Complete open door policy. I'll never turn someone down. I'll never not answer an email. It might take me a day or two, but I will always answer. And if I have the budget to do it, I will train every last person I can train. So I want to help. I'm serious about it. And I want to be the resource for law enforcement when you guys have a question about tactics, gear, leadership, whatever it is that we're here for you. And if I can't answer the question, I've got the guy or
I
girl
mean,
that
Tom
can.
and it goes without saying, we're honored to have you on the show. We will absolutely have you on again at any time. And we want to let our audience know about events that you have going on, specific fundraiser, whatever it is, tell us. We will blast it out in our network for you. And we will do some introducing to people that we think might be in the same vein as you that might be helpful. We are big, big fans of what you're doing. And
Yep. And all the information that you just provided is going to be on our website, is going to be on our social media platforms. We'll touch base off camera, and get even more information from you that we could get out to everybody. And like Dan just said, we're so impressed with your mission, with your background, and what you're
Appreciate that.
able
Thank you.
and providing for
absolutely.
law enforcement today, because
Absolutely.
it's needed.
Nobody
It's
better.
really needed.
Nobody better than you and yeah. What a pleasure. I
Appreciate it,
mean, what
guys.
a privilege to get to talk to you and to hear what you're doing. And we wish you obviously nothing but the best, and we hope to be along this ride with you. Any way we can support it, we're going to. And if I had money, I'd give you
I
money, but
appreciate that.
we'll do what we can do for now.
Thank you, fellas. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to talk to you guys as well. And I'm always available. Whatever you need.
Sounds good. Hey Dan, like we do all the time at the end of shows, and Sully is an example of this, to pray for our law enforcement officers out there, our first responders, our military vets, because all of them volunteer to do what they're doing. No one's forced to do it. Everyone volunteered for that service, and they need a pat on the back every once in a while, and they need a wave on the street, and they need a fist bump in the store, when you see them. You know what? If they're behind you in line, buy them their lunch. Go to the cashier and throw your credit card down and buy the person behind you who's in a uniform, their lunch for the day. All that means more than a medal, than a certificate, than a commendation, and all that. A thank you means the world to military members, military vets, and law enforcement out there. So keep everyone in their prayers, for sure. One last time, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@goldshields, rumble.com/goldshields. Hit that subscribe button for free. Uh, hit the bell, get notifications on the show, and you get to see people like Sully and the great message that he has, and the mission he's on to just make everyone safer, and that's the goal. Uh, so Dan, last time, say what you want, buddy.
The only thing I have to say is thank you, Sully, for being a guest, and not just a guest, but for your passion and for your commitment and your mission. We have a similar mission, and whenever we get somebody on the show who shares that mission, we just want you to know we're with you. Anything we can do to help you, we're going to do it, and I know our audience is going to respond. So, Let's take this fight, to the next level. It's vital for the policing profession. It's vital for the communities. It's vital to making America safer in so many ways. Starts in every little neighborhood, every town, every county. And thank you for doing what you do. And I know we'll be in touch. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate you
Absolutely.
guys, and thank you for your
Oh,
service as
thank you.
well.
All the best.
It was a great
Absolutely.
conversation.
For Sully, for my partner Dan Murphy, this is Tom Smith. Have a great holiday, and we will be talking to everybody very shortly. And everyone out there, stay safe.